Hello and welcome to yet another video. This is the 17th episode of the story, in which Naruto sets out to discover his true reason for being Hokage. Look out, Ninja World! A new Naruto Uzumaki has arrived. Please like and subscribe to show your support. Let's get the show started. Tsunade sat behind her desk with a tired look on her face. The sun was rising outside, meaning that she had been working all night. She hadn't worked so hard in a long time and it left her exhausted. Thankfully, all she needed to do now was go through the final pile of papers and run a quick checkup on Lee since he was still in critical condition. She could still remember how the hospital had been the previous day. Some of the younger medics had panicked when seeing the severe condition in which some of the ninja from Naruto's team had arrived. She, being the example, took full control of the severe cases while keeping an eye on the others every once in a while. The whole fiasco had ended late at night with the group of Shinobi still breathing. A wave of pride washed over her being as she thought back at Kiba's condition. He had been in bad shape, no doubt about that, but it had been thanks to Ino that he didn't get worse. Her student was getting there, and with a bit more of training she would turn into a good medic. It was a shame that she appeared to be more of the fighting type. "You're spacing out a lot," she heard a masculine voice speak. Tsunade whirled her head to the side to see Jiraiya leaning over her shoulder with a perverted smile. She growled before elbowing the toad sage on the stomach. "What are you doing here?" Tsunade asked as she rose from her chair in favor of leaning against one of the windows of her office. Jiraiya, clutching his stomach, managed a grin. "Why, I came here to ask the great Hokage for a favor." Thoughts of what Jiraiya's idea of a favor was raced through her mind before her eyes hardened and cautiously spoke. "What is it?" "Oh, come on, Tsunade." "I'm not that bad," he laughed, noticing the way her eyes had hardened. "I'm just here for a simple request," he explained further before pulling a scroll out of a pocket beneath his red cloak and tossing it to Tsunade. "I've already talked it over with the third. I just need you to approve of it so we can get going." Tsunade read over the contents of the scroll with a scowl on her face. Apparently they had planned to take Naruto on an extended training trip lasting 3 years. On this trip he would also receive missions to carry out and meet with Anko on certain times. During this time Anko would travel with Naruto alone while Jiraiya performed a few missions for the village to cover her absence. All in all, it benefited the village as well as Naruto. A well-thought-out trip, but there was a small problem. What are you going to do about Ino? Those two are inseparable. They won't like the idea of being apart for so long, Tsunade informed. His little girlfriend? Jiraiya asked nonchalantly, receiving a nod from Tsunade. Don't worry about it. They might not like it, but I'm sure that they'll do what's right. He walked over to the open window he had entered from before climbing out and casting a last look at Tsunade. "We'll leave tomorrow. I'm sure he will be fit to travel by then." Ino lay on a hospital bed with her gaze on the sleeping blonde on the bed next to her. His right arm was in a cast while bandages covered most of his torso and head. By medical standards he hadn't been too bad, only experiencing a broken arm and chakra exhaustion. All he would need was rest and he would get better in no time. "Is he awake yet?" said the other occupant of the room. Ino turned to her teammate and shook her head. "No, not yet," she responded before taking in the look of her friend. "How are you feeling, Choji?" "I'm fine." Choji smiled as his thin hand reached for the bag of chips he had gotten not soon after waking up. "Now I have to gain back all that I lost." Ino knew that Choji's clan had to gain weight in order to use most of their jutsu, but still, a small part of her hated the fact that he could lose weight so effortlessly. "Does anyone know what happened to Sasuke yet?" Choji asked through bites. The kunoichi glanced at Naruto, her mouth forming into a frown. "They haven't told me anything yet. For now, only Naruto knows what happened." Now that she thought back, she had been too preoccupied looking after Naruto that she didn't even check to see if Sasuke was there. "I see," Choji nodded absently as he replayed his fight with the sound ninja on his head. That had been his toughest opponent yet, and he had only managed to win by using his pills. If Jirobo had been that strong, he couldn't think of a way his teammates had bested the others. "How are the others then?" he asked in concern. Well, before getting here Kiba was in a pretty bad condition, she began, thinking back at the injuries the others had gone through. Niji was just really tired while Gaara had his right arm cut really bad. I haven't heard from the others yet. Choji went back to his chips though his expression had turned into one of concern. Gaara had seemed invincible at the Chunin exams, and Naruto had been the only one to beat him. The two were now badly hurt and he couldn't help but think that he was still too weak. Don't worry about it though, Ino assured with a confident smile. I'm sure Tsunade-sensei took care of them already. They should be fine now. Besides, she's training me right now so I'll be able to heal you guys up if we're ever in a situation like that again. Well, I'll get even stronger so you don't have to heal anyone, a weak voice chuckled from the bed next to the window. Ino turned to her side to see Naruto's blue eyes staring back at her. Naruto, she smiled, a wave of relief washing through her. He might not have been that hurt, but seeing him so banged up still made her worry. Naruto sat up slowly, ignoring the pain shooting through most of his upper body. All of the punches he took to the chest and stomach were making themselves known as he let out a short breath before noticing Choji's condition through wide eyes. What happened to you? Ino couldn't help but smile at the shocked look on her boyfriend's face. It's nothing, Naruto, he just had to use a clan jutsu, she explained. Naruto looked at Choji with a raised brow before grinning. Well, as long as you're okay, I guess. I'm already working on getting back to normal, Choji boasted as he kept on eating his chips with gusto. What about the others? The Chunin asked after not seeing any of them around. We haven't heard from them yet, Ino explained. What about you, Naruto? Did you beat Sasuke? Naruto frowned as he replayed the last moments of their fight. I did, he began as he narrowed his eyes in thought. He could still remember the white mask the unknown shinobi had worn. Somehow he didn't think that Sound had been involved with the masked ninja since he remembered seeing him disappear through the trees leading to Konoha. Ino looked at Naruto oddly after his long pause. He was deep in thought, which meant that something else had happened. But he was taken away by someone when we were done fighting, Naruto finished before looking back at his friends. Whoever the ninja was, I'm sure he had nothing to do with Sound. Sasuke stirred from his sleep as his eyes opened to see a dark gray roof. His brows furrowed as he tried to sit up, but stopped as a jolt of pain shot through his back. A groan escaped his lips as he tried to get in a position where his back wouldn't hurt that much. Damn it, he growled as he scanned the area around him. He was in a room with gray walls. Only his bed and a small table adorned the place with a small window next to the bed. The wooden door of the room began to open as the Uchiha sat up in alert, ignoring the pain shooting through his back, before looking for any sort of weapon he could use. You're awake, a masked ninja stated upon entering the room. Sasuke watched him with a scowl on his face. Where am I? Stay here, the masked ninja ordered before turning to leave. I asked you a question. Sasuke glared with his fists clenching. Where the hell am I? The masked ninja turned to Sasuke rather abruptly before walking up to him. The Uchiha growled but received a hard punch to the side of his face. His face snapped to the side with a bit of blood trailing down his mouth before the masked ninja took hold of his shirt and pulled him closer. You are in no position to make demands, the masked ninja said in an emotionless voice. He dropped his hold on the Uchiha before leaving the room. Sasuke watched him leave while clutching his jaw. His eye darted around the room but found no way to leave other than the door. He let out another groan once his back began to hurt once more, making him squirm before resting against the bed once more. He simply stared at the roof before hearing the sound of footsteps. Turning to the door, Sasuke didn't bother getting up. He didn't want to risk being attacked again. One more masked ninja entered the room, this time a woman judging by her long hair. Sasuke watched her with a curious eye before she approached him and placed both hands above his body. Green chakra emitted from the masked ninja's hands as she moved them around his body. She nodded to herself before taking a few steps back. Stay here, was her simple command before leaving. Sasuke frowned as soon as the door closed. Just where the hell was he? Naruto watched the sun set on the horizon. The bandages on his head swayed with the wind as he leaned against the fence covering the hospital's rooftop. People walked along the streets while some nurses and doctors rushed in and out of the hospital. "Why do you look so bummed, kid?" he heard a voice ask from behind him. "I'm just thinking," he said without turning around. He shook his head before turning to his master. "What are you doing here, Jiraiya-sensei?" Jiraiya frowned. "Come on, kid. Can't you at least act a little surprised?" "You always appear out of nowhere when people are alone," Naruto explained with a blank look before shrugging. "I guess I got used to it." "That was a bit colder than I thought." Jiraiya muttered to himself before clearing his throat and throwing the blonde a grin. "I came here to give you some good news." Naruto raised a brow at that. "What kind of news?" "I've been talking to the third on how to go about your training for some time now," Jiraiya explained as he crossed his arms. "I decided that it would be for the better if you and I went on a little training trip. What do you say, kid?" "Sounds great," Naruto grinned, liking the idea of training. He needed to get stronger in order to protect his precious people. His latest mission had only shown him that there were still powerful people out there. He had slacked on his training the last few weeks, but he wouldn't let it happen again. "How long is this trip?" "A month or two?" Naruto asked. Jiraiya's eyes grew firm before he spoke. 3 years. Naruto's eyes widened, looking at his teacher in shock. "What?" he couldn't help but ask. "I can't leave for 3 years." "Why's that?" "Because I can't just leave for 3 years just like that," he argued. "I've got people here that I can't leave alone." Jiraiya frowned. "You're being selfish, Naruto," he scolded in a firm tone, making the blonde instantly calm down though his eyes still held defiance. "Do you think that you're helping those people by staying here? What will happen if the Akatsuki attack the village? Nobody would survive against them." Naruto turned his gaze downwards. Jiraiya was right. He had vowed to protect them at all costs, and going with him was his best bet at getting strong enough to face the Akatsuki. Sure, if he stayed on the village he could also get stronger, but there was no guarantee that he would reach the level Jiraiya could give him. "When do we leave?" he muttered in defeat. Jiraiya's eyes softened before he patted Naruto on the back, giving him a reassuring smile. "Trust me, Naruto. I wouldn't make you leave if you didn't need to." He took a few steps back before speaking once more. "We'll be leaving tomorrow. I'll be waiting in the village gate at noon." "All right." Naruto nodded before Jiraiya disappeared in a whirl of leaves. He stayed there, watching the space his master had just occupied. He turned back to the village with a deep scowl on his face. "How am I going to tell Ino?" Tsunade and Shizune walked along the hallways of the hospital. The legendary medic held a clipboard on her hands, reading its contents with a pleased look on her face. Most of the retrieval team was doing better, and some could be let out of the hospital the following day. So far only Naruto, Ino, Neji, Shino, and Gaara were well enough to be discharged the next day, while Lee, Kiba, and Choji would need to stay longer. "Are you sure you should be here, Lady Tsunade?" Shizune asked out of concern. Tsunade had yet to take a break and looked as though she had seen better days. Tsunade put the clipboard away before chuckling softly. "Don't worry, Shizune," she waved her off. "I know my own limits, and even though I haven't worked so hard in some time, I'll be fine." Shizune nodded as the two of them walked into a hospital room. Inside sat Neji, Shino, and Gaara, the latter standing near the window with a passive look on his face. "I think that you'll be glad to know that you will be discharged tomorrow," she began while reading over the clipboard once more. "Just make sure to rest once you're out, and absolutely no missions or training for a few days." "Understood," Neji nodded before a serious expression etched on his face. "How is Lee doing?" Tsunade crossed her arms before shaking her head. "He'll need to stay here for a couple more days. Even then, we're not sure if he'll wake up. The damage he took was very severe, and it could take weeks for him to get better." "I see." Neji muttered with his usual calm look, though his eyes held a bit of worry. Gaara eyed the cast on his arm with a curious expression, never having worn one before. Before coming to the Leaf he had never been harmed, but after meeting Naruto everything changed. Not only his ways, but also the people he came to meet. It was as though trouble followed wherever Naruto went. I would like to know the condition of our other teammates, if I may, Shino asked in interest. Most of them are doing well, Tsunade began. In fact, Naruto and Ino will be discharged tomorrow as well. Choji is not well enough to leave, but he'll do so in a few days. Gaara turned his attention to the window in the room, now having the information he wanted. It was getting dark and the small garden on the back of the hospital was empty save for a man gathering some tools. He then turned his attention to the sky, looking at the retreating clouds and thinking of his home. It wasn't that he didn't enjoy the company of, well, his friends, but he found himself missing the familiar desert he had grown up in. And for the first time Gaara wondered if he was feeling homesick. Sasuke sat on the bed of his small room with hundreds of thoughts racing through his head. Where was he? What did they want with him? Had Orochimaru taken him to his base? He had seen the light of day fade away to the darkness of night and wondered how long he had been resting on the bed. The soreness on his jaw was almost gone while the pain on his back seemed to get stronger. Almost as a reminder of he and Naruto's battle. A fight in which he lost against the Deadlast. His fists clenched in anger before the door to his room was opened once again. Turning his head to the side, Sasuke was met by the sight of the masked ninja that had punched him earlier. Our lord is here now, the masked ninja informed. His mask and voice not showing the slightest emotion whatsoever. Follow me, he ordered, but saw that the Uchiha had yet to move. I can't move, he tried to reason with a glare, the pain on my back is too strong. The masked ninja kept his gaze on Sasuke for what seemed like hours before he finally spoke. Very well, he approached the Uchiha, gently holding onto his shoulders before gripping them tightly and flinging him across the room. Sasuke let out a cough as his back slammed against the wall before dropping on the ground. He grit his teeth in pain before the masked ninja walked to him once more. His hand shook before the ninja kicked him on the side, cracking some ribs on the process. The masked ninja bent next to Sasuke before gripping his hair tightly and pulling him to his feet. Our lord wishes to see you, the masked ninja repeated before moving towards the door. It would be for the best if you followed me. Sasuke ignored the pain shooting through his body and followed after the masked man, figuring that he would rather meet their lord rather than take another beating. Once they walked outside of the room, he was greeted by more gray walls, though this time they were part of a large hallway. He noticed that there were many doors along the hallway, all of them the same brown color. The masked ninja began to move through the hallway, Sasuke quickly following after him with a slight limp. They kept on walking for what seemed like hours before they arrived to a large door protected by two other masked ninja. We have been summoned, the masked ninja spoke. The two other ninja pushed the door open, their masks glaring into Sasuke once the door was fully open. Let us go, the masked ninja ordered before entering the room with Sasuke on tow. It was a large room with many windows on the walls, though they showed no view. A large desk stood in front of Sasuke, behind it a single chair where a man sat. His wrinkled face showing no emotion as he looked over the young Uchiha. The masked ninja kneeled before his lord. I have brought the Uchiha, Lord Danzo. Danzo nodded before motioning for the masked ninja to leave with a wave of his hand. The ninja left the room without a word, closing the large doors behind him, leaving Sasuke alone with the older man. I suppose you wish to know why you have been brought here, Danzo stated with his face giving nothing away. You have been brought before me in order to determine your future, he explained, as things stand. You can only bargain for it. What are you talking about? Sasuke glared, what you just said made no sense. Tell me why I'm here. Danzo's single eye narrowed before he snapped his fingers, two masked ninja instantly appearing next to Sasuke and holding his arms painfully. The Uchiha let out a growl of pain as his Sharingan glared into the elder. You are still in Konoha, he informed in a cold voice. Sasuke's brows furrowed as he looked around the room, finding that it didn't look like anything on the village. You see, young Uchiha, Danzo began. You only have two choices, and I'll lay them out for you, he stated. You can either work under me, get stronger and rise through the ranks of my force. Or you could go back to Konoha where they'll lock you up for the rest of your life, at least. Sasuke grit his teeth, the answer being obvious to him. I'll join you, he declared while glaring at one of the masked ninja gripping his arm. Just get them off of me. Danzo nodded to the two masked ninja, both instantly releasing their grips and leaving in clouds of smoke. The elder smirked, having just gained a new tool. Then welcome to Root. Day had come to Konoha once again. The streets were filled with villagers and ninja alike. Some simply to take in the peaceful sights, while younger ninja rushed from place to place doing the odd jobs that came with D-rank missions. Naruto and Ino walked out of the hospital feeling refreshed and ready to go. Naruto still wore his cast while Ino had a few bandages wrapped around her ankle. I can't wait to go home and shower, Ino complained, looking over her clothes with a frown. I hate smelling like hospital, and on top of that, my parents couldn't come get me a change of clothes. Naruto chuckled as he walked alongside his girlfriend. I keep on telling you to keep an extra pair of clothes on a scroll, he reminded, earning a pout from Ino. He smiled before getting an idea. Hey Ino, let's go on a date. Ino stopped on her tracks, looking at Naruto oddly, but we just go out of the hospital. I know, we can do it later, he grinned as he held her right hand. Let's just go celebrate for having gotten out of that mission in one piece. His smile, in Ino's eyes, was fake. His eyes seemed to lose their spark, like something was bothering him. Sure, she answered while looking at him in worry. At what time should we go? Quickly, he immediately said before catching himself and smiling sheepishly. I mean if you don't mind. I'll pick you up in about an hour. All right, Ino nodded before the two came to a crossroads. She looked at him in concern before beginning to walk away. I'll see you later. Ino turned to Naruto, flashing him a smile. I'll be waiting. Naruto watched Ino's retreating figure, his eyes turning to the ground. He would tell her at the end of their date. There was still time before he had to leave with Jiraiya anyway, which meant that he could tell her at his own pace. He just hoped that this date would be enough to hang on to for 3 years. Two Akatsuki members walked through a mountainous path. Large valleys could be seen from where they walked near a mountain's edge. One of the members had light blue hair with a paper rose on her hair. Alongside her was a man with orange hair and many piercings on his face. He carried a heavily armored man over his shoulder, his eyes closed and parts of his armor missing. We are still not done with preparations, the Akatsuki member with orange hair spoke. We will extract this bijou and then go into hiding until our preparations are completed. What of the man wearing the whirl mask? The member with blue hair asked. He is not to be trusted, he responded. We do not know of his motives, and associating with him would only endanger our cause, the Akatsuki member explained. Also, our comrade has met with him before. I take her word over his. The blue-haired Akatsuki member said nothing as the two continued to walk through the mountain. Han, the Jinchuriki of the Gobi, had been captured, but it seemed as though they got ahead of themselves. The Akatsuki would wait for now. They were in no rush after all. I can't believe you ate all that ramen, Ino giggled before pointing a finger at Naruto, but next time we'll go to a place that I choose. I don't mind eating ramen, but it's my turn to choose the place of our date. Naruto smiled as he and Ino sat on a nearby bench. They were currently on a park near the village's gate. Ino wore an orange shirt along with brown shorts since she knew the date wouldn't be anywhere formal due to it being last minute. She did wonder why Naruto was dressed on his usual ninja attire, even sporting his headband. It's a deal, Naruto smiled as he turned to Ino with his expression turning serious. He drew in a breath before speaking. I have something important to tell you. Ino looked at him in slight concern. It was rare for him to be so serious outside of missions. She didn't know what she expected him to say, but the next words that left his mouth caught her completely off guard. I'm leaving the village. What? She stammered with her eyes wide in shock. Naruto caught wind of his words before flailing his arms in the air. Not like that. I mean that I'll be leaving for training with Jiraiya-sensei, he quickly explained, not wanting to sound like he was about to desert them. A wave of relief washed over. Ino, now knowing that things weren't too serious, when are you coming back? I'll be leaving, he began but couldn't finish. Looking into the eyes of Ino, watching him closely in curiosity, he couldn't bring himself to tell her. He clenched his fists before finally gaining the courage to talk. I'll be leaving for 3 years. Ino looked at Naruto as though he were crazy before a wave of desperation washed over her. But why, she asked louder than she intended, why for 3 years? I don't really know why 3 years, but Jiraiya-sensei has thought it over for some time. He cast a look at the ground, not being able to meet Ino's eyes. I have to do this, Ino. He thought back at the last mission, how he had been unable to put a dent on Kimimaro. If I'll go with Jiraiya-sensei, I'll become strong enough to protect you. But you're already strong, Naruto, she argued. I'm already training with Tsunade-sensei. Soon, I won't need you to protect me anymore. There's no reason for you to go. There's some people after the Kyuubi, he explained. I have to get stronger if I want to go up against them. Then get Jiraiya or Kakashi to help you with them, she offered in desperation. Naruto shook his head. It's not their fight, Ino, he muttered with his gaze still on the ground. The last thing I want to do is hurt you, but this is really necessary. I want to be able to protect you from the Akatsuki. Jiraiya-sensei and Kakashi-sensei won't always be there to protect me. A shaky breath escaped Ino's lips. What's going to happen to us then? She asked worriedly. I'll write you every time I can, he responded as he clenched his left fist slightly. I promise that I'll always write to tell you how I'm doing, he assured before letting out a short breath. This hurts me too, but I have to go. Ino looked at Naruto with tears threatening to fall. Look at me, Naruto, her voice overflowing with emotion. Naruto let out a sigh before meeting her eyes. Is this really what you want? Yeah, Naruto answered truthfully before taking her hand on his. Those guys will be after me, and I don't want anyone getting hurt because of it, he explained. I want to be able to protect myself from them. If they did anything to you because of me, I don't know if I could take it. Fine, Ino responded with her gaze on the ground. She understood his intentions for leaving. Looking at his eyes, she could see the inner turmoil he was going through. He was sacrificing himself in order to protect them, and the least she could do was make a sacrifice herself. A sad smile formed on her face as she thought of this. I know I can't stop you when you get like this. He was cut off as Ino's lips found his. His eyes widened slightly before returning the kiss eagerly. Ino moaned into his mouth as their kiss deepened, Naruto's arm snaking around her waist and pulling her closer. Naruto caressed Ino's tongue with his before she suddenly pulled away, leaving him a blushing, stuttering mess. What? Ino giggled. That's something to remember me by, she explained with a mischievous glint on her eyes. If you ever hide something from me again, you'll pay. Sorry, he stammered, still feeling the effects of that kiss. It's okay, she interrupted before wrapping her arms around him and pressing her head against his chest. Let's just stay like this for now. Naruto obliged and pulled her closer. He closed his eyes as he took in the moment, knowing that he would miss her dearly. Jiraiya stood near the gate of Konoha. His arms were crossed as he looked for any sign of his student. The boy was late, something he had been doing lately. It seemed that he was gaining a few traits from Kakashi, and, as much as he liked to take it easy, he would have to get him to get rid of that single thing. He was broken out of his thoughts when he finally saw his student approaching him with Ino walking right beside him. Both had a sad glint on their eyes as they came to a stop a few feet away from him. Are you ready, kid? Jiraiya asked, knowing how much it would hurt his student to leave. He himself had gone through something similar before, but sacrifice is something a ninja should get used to as soon as possible. Naruto hesitantly nodded before throwing a glance at Ino and then back at his master. Can I just have a few minutes to say goodbye? All right then, Jiraiya agreed before beginning to walk away. Naruto smiled sadly at Ino as she moved to stand in front of him, only a few inches separating them. Hey Ino, make sure to take Grandma Tsunade's training seriously, he said in a teasing voice. Ino looked at him with a fake frown. What? You're the one leaving with a pervert. You take your training seriously, and I don't want you picking up any of his habits. They both chuckled before being interrupted by Jiraiya yelling from the gate, "Come on, Naruto. We have to get going." Naruto nodded slowly before turning back to Ino, the kunoichi looking sadly at the ground with tears threatening to fall. "Tell everyone to take care." His voice was barely a whisper as he struggled to keep himself together. Ino nodded with her gaze still on the ground, the first of tears beginning to roll down her face. "Why yet?" They both stayed still before Naruto pulled her into a hug, closing his eyes and taking in her scent. 3 years. He wouldn't get to see her for 3 years. "Hey Ino," he whispered into her ear, trying to ignore the hollow pain shooting through his chest before muttering something into her ear. Ino's eyes widened as she heard Naruto's last words. More tears rolled down her face before he pulled away, smiling sadly before giving a small wave and running to Jiraiya's side. She watched as the two left. 3 years. She wouldn't get to see him for 3 years. His last words to her replayed on her head as a small smile formed on her lips. He had never told her that, and it left her with a bittersweet feeling. Ino watched Naruto's retreating figure before responding to his last words to her. "I love you too."
That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.